All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No one. All right, we need a voice vote to certify that in the closed meeting just concluded, nothing was discussed except that the matters specifically identified in the motion to convene in a closed meeting and lawfully permitted to be so discussed under the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act cited in that motion.
Yes.
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 Thank you. All right. We will move on then to public comments, which we do not have any this evening. So that takes us to student recognition. Oh, the pledge. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Ms. Waller. All right. Student recognition this evening, we have quite a few different programs to recognize. We're going to start with the 24 Math Game Challenge. Dr. Brabrand.
Thank you, Ms. Haas. We had, first up is our 24 Math Game Challenge recognition of our top mathematicians. They competed with peers of their 11 elementary schools in our annual 24 game challenge in April, and I want the following students who were the top finishers to come up. I will present you with a certificate, and I would ask you all to stay up and stay in the horseshoe, and then we will take a group photo. This is an amazing competition. It's one of the first things I got to observe when I came to Lynchburg, and we set it up this year almost like a Las Vegas style with cameras and smart boards to be able to watch all the action. It's high drama, it's exciting, and really what it does is showcase a love for mathematics. If we start that at an early age, then we can see kids go on and have a lifelong interest in that area. So we're very proud of all the folks that competed, and these are our top finishers. Aaron Jaffe, Sheffield Elementary School. Aaron? Yes. Hold on.
Where is it?
Right here. Thank you. Congratulations. Stay right there. Kiara Spinner from Bass Elementary School. Ms. Spinner. Justin Kim from R.S. Payne Elementary School. Congratulations, sir. Congratulations. And Trinity King from Bass Elementary School. Well, if we could stand board and be recognized and let these, is Miss Babb here to take a photo of these two fine mathematicians? Are we in, is everybody in the picture, Miss Babb? Let's give these two young gentlemen a big round of applause again. Thank you. You can take a seat. Thank you.
All right, we will move on to our next student recognition item, the Newcomers Program. And Dr. Brabrand?
Yes, in August 2015, Lynchburg City Schools initiated the Lynchburg City Schools Newcomers Program as part of our overall services to secondary-aged English language learners. Miss Michelle Quarintado, did I do that right, Michelle? I didn't, I can tell. EL teacher will present an overview of the program and recognize students who successfully completed the first year of the Newcomers Program, which is located at Heritage High School. And I think I have those certificates, but you're going to do a little overview.
Use this.
You can speak right.
Okay. All right, I want to thank you for having us here tonight. First, my name is Michelle Quarantoto, or Miss Q as I'm known at Heritage. I am the newcomer teacher at Heritage High School, and this is our first year of the program. Today, today's students from non-English speaking backgrounds are one of the fastest growing student populations in the U.S., and a large number of these students are newcomers with limited or no English language proficiency, and in many cases have a limited formal education. All of these students come with a very unique story, talents, and perspective on the world, but they also enter with time against them. Secondary students have the challenge of learning English while mastering academic content and adapting to American culture socially and academically. And for students lacking formal schooling or literacy in their first language, this can be very difficult, especially without a place specifically designed to welcome them and allow them the time to grow their language knowledge in a safe and nurturing environment, which now we have. So at Heritage High School, we began the newcomer program with 3 students, and by the end of April, we've served 19 students. The growth in the program is proof that the newcomer program is essential and very valuable to this district. Without it, the 17 students would have been placed in mainstream classes with only basic ESL support. Our goal this year and moving forward is to offer students the opportunity to learn English at an advanced pace for a year inside of an ELL classroom. This gave the students the time and the space to learn English without the added stress of SOL classes, but maybe even more importantly, it offered them a space to let their guard down and show their personality, share their stories, and go through the process of starting over with love and support of their peers, working through similar ups and downs of a new beginning. Being together in the same room for 5 periods every day, we really got to know one another, and room 554 became a living room. And each person that entered the door was immediately taken in and welcomed like family. They had a space to call home, and they were quick to show their strengths and their gifts to the rest of the class. I cannot say enough about how hard these students worked, how kind and respectful they are, and how proud I am of all the accomplishments and growth they've made this year. So thank you, Dr. Bergman, for this opportunity, and we stand with you in the mission for every child by name and by need to graduation.
Thank you. I just want to say before I recognize these students that this is another thing about getting better is benchmarking. Where are other districts doing the work and doing it better? We took, I think Dr. McLean helped lead a delegation to Harrisonburg to see their newcomer program 2 years ago when he first arrived, and we looked at what they were doing and seeing the dramatic success that they were having with kids. And this really is another way of putting our mission into action. So I don't know that everybody was able to make it tonight because I know there are work responsibilities and family responsibilities for many of our students, including these students. But I'm going to call everybody's name and those that are here. I'd love, why don't you come up here and be able to hand the certificate to them? That would be wonderful. Rafael Chavez. Rafael. Felicidades, señor. Gracias por todo. Victor Manzano. Omar Carreno. Felicidades, Omar. Qué bien, qué bien. Beatriz Martinez. Roberto Santiago. Señor Santiago, un placer, señor. Jamer Cal Máquez. ¿Qué bien? ¿No? ¿Está aquí él? ¿No? Okay. And Victor Lopez. Quiero decirles que tenemos mucho orgullo de todo lo que ustedes han hecho este año. Ustedes son un símbolo de este sistema, tratando de enfrentar las cosas que usted tiene para que usted tenga éxito en todo lo que quiere hacer en estas escuelas. ¿Ok? Gracias por sus sueños, sus esperanzas, y tenemos mucho orgullo de todo lo que ustedes han hecho aquí. All right? I just told them I'm proud of them. we're here to support their dreams, their hopes, and we expect them to continue to do wonderful things in Lynchburg City Schools. If we'll stand and recognize them one more time. Gracias otra vez. Que se vaya bien. Gracias, señor. Gracias.
All right, we don't provide many opportunities for you to use
I know,
your
my-
Spanish. There you go.
A little rusty, but
All right. Our next item of student recognition is the Career Technical Program competitions. Dr. Brabrand.
EC Glass, I mean, we have EC Glass, Heritage, we have so many celebrations to give, and let me see if I've got myself ready for all of our winners here. I think I'll just match the first one is the Auguste Escoffier Award for Excellence in Culinary Arts. That goes to Skylar Carter, first place at EC Glass High School, a $5,000 scholarship. Congratulations. Come on up, Mr. Carter. Well done, sir. If you'd stay too and be here with your colleagues as we... The next is Razmina Jakaria. Razmina, are you here? And Damonte Demonez and Kashonda Brown, are they here as well? No? They were Bronze Award winners from EC Glass in the Live Culinary Arts event.
Sorry, Kashonda is here. I didn't see her. I'm sorry.
Miss Brown, come on down. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And you know what? Here are the two certificates for your colleagues if you want to take that back with them. Congratulations. Hang tight. Next we have Javante Wells and Skylar Carter, who's already come up, and Corian Carrington for the silver medal in the Culinary Arts event, Live Culinary Arts event. Ms. Carey, congratulations. Then for food innovations, we have at EC Glass High School, 5th place went to Brianna Rice, Rashad Anderson, and LaShante Trent. Are they here? Okay. Food innovations, we had Corin Wright and Cameron Jefferson, 3rd place, EC Glass High School. No? They received both a $2,000 scholarship to Johnson and Wales University. Let's give them a round of applause. For classic knife cuts and chicken fabrication, Aisha Jones, 2nd place. Miss Jones got a $3,000 scholarship to the Culinary Institute of Virginia and a $5,000 scholarship to Sullivan University in Louisville, Kentucky. Congratulations, Miss Jones. We had Haley Hatcher, 3rd place, Heritage High School, a $2,000 scholarship to the Culinary Institute of Virginia, and an $8,000 scholarship to Sullivan University in Louisville, Kentucky. Ms. Hatcher, are you here? And in showpieces, we also had Amanda Bursch, first place from Heritage High School, $4,000 from the Culinary Institute of Virginia, and $8,000 from Sullivan University. Is Miss Bursch here? I would love to have been a part of this award. The Decorated Cake Award, fourth place went to Alexis Ward at Heritage High School. Is Alexis here? For career investigation, we had a fifth place winner from EC Glass High School, Zaire Shelton. We had a fourth place winner from EC Glass High School, Laylee Fleshman. They're studying for their CTE certification, and I guess they probably already received the money. Attendance here tonight wasn't contingent on receiving the $11,000 in scholarship. Well, I also want to see if we've got one or two others to announce. Nathan Hansen finished third in the state in architectural drawing. Mr. Hansen. Congratulations, sir. And Caleb Slaughter, also from EC Glass, was state runner-up in technical illustration. Caleb? Congratulations, Mr. Slaughter. Finally, I want to recognize an engineering student from EC Glass High School, Carson Wood, won first place in technical math at the State Skills USA competition. He will advance to represent Lynchburg City Schools at the national competition in Louisville, Kentucky later this month. Congratulations. Let's give all these young people another big round of applause. Thank you again. We're really proud of you. Well done, and we're very, very proud of your success. And thank you for being a part of Lynchburg City Schools, and your families too for coming out tonight and celebrating with us. We're really proud of your sons and daughters and what they have done for themselves and for the school system. So thank you very much. Good job.
We will move on with our consent agenda. On the consent agenda this evening, we have school board meeting minutes, May 3rd regular meeting, the personnel report and an addenda, religious exemption, and the school nutrition high school lunch price increase. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No one. Motion carries. All right. Dr. Berbrand has an announcement to make.
Thank you, Ms. Haas. I have a couple of announcements this evening. First of all, it gives me great pleasure to share with you tonight that the Lynchburg City School Board has approved the appointment of Ms. Casey Crabb as the new director of our new Empowerment Academy in Lynchburg City Schools. Ms. Crabb has been the principal of Dunbar Middle School since the 2013-2014 school year and was the assistant principal for 4 years prior to that. Before taking on administrative roles, she spent many years as a special education teacher, including time at Heritage High and Lincoln Middle Schools. Ms. Crabb's administrative experience and educational background, combined with her ability to form deep relationships with students, make her the right leader to help Empowerment Academy students obtain academic success. She received her Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology Special Education in 2001 and her Master's of Education, Educational Leadership, School Administration in 2005, both from Lynchburg College. We're very excited about Empowerment Academy and about her leadership to meet every child by name and by need to graduation. So let's give Ms. Crabb a big round of applause, and we look forward to I also want to share with you tonight that I am pleased that the Lynchburg City School Board has approved the appointment of Mr. Ron Profit as the new Associate Principal for Heritage High School. Mr. Profit replaces Mr. Dennis Knight, who will be serving as the school's new Athletic Director, which was shared earlier last month. Mr. Profit was previously the Assistant Principal at Bassett High School in Bassett, Virginia, in Henry County, where he served as the 10th grade administrator and athletics activities director since 2010. He supervised instructional and curriculum pacing and implementation, evaluated classified and certified staff, and was administrator of student discipline and academic achievement. Prior to his role at Bassett High School, Mr. Profit was the assistant principal for the Fieldsdale-Collinsville Middle School. He's also been an English teacher and a boys track coach at Bassett High School. I am pleased to welcome Mr. Profit to Lynchburg City Schools, and I know his experience as an administrator, teacher, and coach will play a positive role in the future of Heritage High. Mr. Profit received his master's degree in educational leadership and policy studies from Virginia Tech in 2007, and he had a bachelor's degree in English from Emory and Henry in 1997. As I understand it, Mr. Profit actually played competitive football against Mr. Beatty in college on rival teams. So that's going to be an interesting football discussion as those two come together for the Heritage Administrative Team. But we welcome Mr. Profit to Lynchburg City Schools, and we know he'll do a wonderful job helping lead Heritage in the years ahead. So let's give him a big round of applause.
All right, thank you, Dr. Brabrandt.
Thank you.
We will move on to student representative comments, and we will follow the comments with resolutions this evening. So we will begin with Mr. Farmer at EC Glass.
And I'm going to start with a slight apology because due to some technical difficulties, I'm not going to have the presentation. So I'm just kind of going to have to read them out to you. All right. Our Hilltopper of the Week for the week of May 16th was Miss Rawls Fanning, who is a big fan of EC Glass's strong academic, athletic, and cultural arts programs. And our Hilltopper of the Week for the week of May 23rd was Miss Karen Allison, who is the guidance secretary and also secretary to Miss Floor. And our Hilltopper of the Week for the week of May 30th is Miss Wombold, who has only been at Glass for 2 years but loves the feeling of community that is at EC Glass. We recently had our senior trip to King's Dominion, where a couple students got stuck on a roller coaster, which was exciting. And in general, it was a great day. We also dedicated a brick along the brick path around our gym to our principal and the rest of our 2015 administrative team. And last Thursday, a couple French students, mostly the AP French student class, went to see the D-Day Memorial and toured around it. And they also put a wreath on it. At EC Glass High School, senior Dylan Worsham received a full scholarship for the engineering program at CVCC. We also had our senior awards ceremony where all the students were recognized for scholarships they received going to each school that they were planning on going to. The JRTC program presented colors at the Memorial Day ceremonies yesterday, being held on the memorial steps in front of the old courthouse. And then our resource officer, Lance Brooks, participated in 22 Push-Up Monday, where he performed 22 push-ups along with other students to serve in memory to the estimated 22 veterans who take their lives every day. In our spring sports, our 4x800 team were state champions again, and they have been state champions for the last 7 of 8 state meets. And the girls tennis team are the 2016 regional champions. The EC Glass boys soccer team are the conference 23 champions and go on to the state tournament this weekend. And the EC Glass boys lacrosse team were the 2016 conference champions. And then 2 weeks ago we had our Blue Angels visit, where they came to Glass and gave a presentation on what they do. And then we had our very own Blue Angel, Miss Floor, who flew like shotgun in one of the fired just as they flew around above the airport. And also, we wanted to remember the Blue Angel, Mr. Jeff Cuss, who was killed when his jet crashed in Tennessee last week.
Thank you, Mr. Farmer. Ms. Page, what's going on at Heritage?
Well, I do have a presentation for you all. The end of an era. These are the last few weeks of the old Heritage High School building. About 90 seniors traveled to Washington, D.C. on May 17th and toured the East Wing of the White House. Afterwards, they explored the Smithsonian, the American History Museum, and the Museum of Natural History. Despite the gloomy and rainy and yucky weather, everyone did have a very wonderful time. All Things Aviation. A group of Heritage High School students met the Blue Angels on May 20th and had the opportunity to spend some time with the real Leland Melvin. It was indeed a great day in #1 Big Orange Country. Marine Corps JROTC Awards. This time of year brings lots of celebrations, and one of those includes the MC JROTC Awards ceremony on May 28th. It was a fun event for the cadets and their families. Pioneers Have the Power. Annually, Heritage High School invites its students to a day of fun at Putt Putt Fun Center. May 31st was a fun-filled day for both teachers and students. Student Athlete Spring Awards. The Spring Awards banquet was also held on May 31st to recognize student athletes for their achievements in the classroom as well as in athletics. CNAs. Congratulations to the graduating CNAs of Heritage High School. Baccalaureate. Heritage's baccalaureate was held on Sunday afternoon. It was a joyous ceremony for the graduating class of 2016, and I was honored to volunteer to help pass out programs and run the lights for the show. Hall of Fame. Congratulations to Keith Hamilton, Daryl Parham, Laura Rapp, Jerry Dudley, and Ingrid Hamlet on being inducted into the Heritage High School Hall of Fame class of 2016. And that's all.
Thank you. All right. I will start by reading a resolution of accommodation and appreciation of Mr. Farmer, and then Ms. Waller will read one for Heritage representatives. A resolution of commendation and appreciation to Stephen M. Farmer, presented by the Lynchburg City School Board. Mr. Stephen M. Farmer was selected by his peers to represent Easy Glass High School on the Lynchburg City School Board during the 2015-16 school year. The Lynchburg City School Board views this desire to serve in public life as the worthiest of ambitions. With this resolution, the Lynchburg City School Board seeks to pay tribute to Mr. Stephen M. Farmer, a student who has conscientiously worked to keep the student body's viewpoint before this Lynchburg City School Board. Excuse me. In doing so, he fulfilled his responsibility and made a valuable contribution to public education in this community. Whereas Mr. Stephen M. Farmer served Lynchburg City Schools as the E.C. Glass High School student representative to the Lynchburg City School Board from July 2015 until June 2016. And whereas Mr. Stephen M. Farmer served as a role model for his peers as a stellar student who will be graduating with the advanced diploma with the honors, gold, silver, and career tech seals. He was a member of the E.C. Glass winning cross-country, track, and soccer teams. He aspires to be an aerospace engineer and will be attending Virginia Tech this fall. And whereas Mr. Stephen M. Farmer has shown commitment to service in his community through charity and political involvement. He has contributed to various community service projects, including tutoring middle school students and participating in local charity, promotional, and fundraiser events. Also, he led the E.C. Glass team at the Model General Assembly in passing 4 bills and was selected as a Virginia delegate to the Conference on National Affairs as a student representative of the LCS board. He states he enjoyed seeing the political process in action. And whereas Mr. Stephen M. Farmer's attendance at Lynchburg City School Board meetings demonstrated his commitment to his role as a champion for the best possible educational experience for all students. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Lynchburg City School Board of Lynchburg, Virginia commends Mr. Stephen M. Farmer for many valuable contributions in providing the school board with yet another viewpoint for their consideration and guidance. Furthermore, the school board of the city of Lynchburg takes pride in this superior individual who so early in his life has already begun to make his mark by taking such an active part in public life in Lynchburg, Virginia. Signed, the Lynchburg City School Board Chair and Dr. Brabrand, Superintendent. I need a motion to pass the resolution. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No one? All right, Mr. Farmer, would you like to come forward and accept this? Thank you, and best wishes to you. Mr. Walker?
The resolution of recognizing and appreciating the Heritage High School student representatives presented by the Lynchburg City School Board. 4 students jointly represented Heritage High School on the Lynchburg School Board during the 2015-16 school year. The Lynchburg City School Board views this desire to serve in public life as the worthiest of ambitions. With this resolution, the Lynchburg City School Board seeks to pay tribute to Diamond Rosser, Javon Calloway, Alex Harvey, and Indra Page. Students who conscientiously work to keep the student body's viewpoint before the Lynchburg City School Board. In doing so, they fulfilled the students' representatives' responsibility and made a valuable contribution to public education in this community. Whereas these students served Lynchburg City Schools as the Heritage High School student representatives to the Lynchburg City School Board from July 2015 until June 2016. And whereas these students attended at Lynchburg City School Board meetings demonstrated the school's commitment to its role as a champion for the best possible education experience for all students. Now therefore be it resolved that the Lynchburg City School Board of Lynchburg, Virginia commends these students for their valuable contributions in providing the school board with yet another viewpoint for their consideration and guidance. Furthermore, the school board of the City of Lynchburg takes pride in these individuals who so early in life have already begun to make their mark by taking such an active part in public life in Lynchburg, Virginia. It's signed by the chairman, Ms. Hoss, and by the school superintendent. Thank you very much. And I would like to come and take this back to Heritage. Thank you. Thank you. Thank all of them.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, we need a motion to pass the resolution. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know if you want to leave. We certainly understand as the school year is winding down. So, all right. We will move on to school board committee reports. Do we have any committee reports? Dr. Dolan-Sewell?
Yep, okay. I'd like to report on the most recent meeting of the STEM Academy. We've got some good information regarding students who will be returning next year to the program, as well as our graduating class this year. So next year, there are 22 students returning. We do have one new senior from EC Glass, and this is in place of an EC Glass junior who decided not to return. The demographics of the senior class is 68% male, 32% female. And the senior ethnicity, 72% white, 12% Asian, 8% African American, and 8% other. In terms of the junior class, we actually have a very, very similar, basically identical demographics for this. For ethnicity for the juniors, but for the juniors' gender demographics, we've got an increase in females, 44% females in the STEM program, and 56% males. You might be interested in the specialty areas for the juniors coming in now that they have the new cybersecurity program. 16% of the students will be participating in that, 48% in mechatronics, and 36% in biotech. Because cybersecurity is new, the seniors coming up, it's split between mechatronics at 60% and biotech at 40%. What most people are interested in is what's happening with our graduates, and it's really exciting. where the students are going that have come out of the STEM Academy. 12 students are attending four-year colleges. 10 students are attending Central Virginia Community College, and one is going to the National Guard. Of the four-year institutions this year, we have George Mason, Liberty University, Montana Tech, Old Dominion University, VMI, and Virginia Tech represented. Interestingly, 5 students going to ODU and 3 to VMI. So that is the update on STEM Academy.
Great, thank you. All right. Any other committee reports? Okay. Dr. Coleman?
Just want to acknowledge that the Equity Task Force met, and we will be having a report that will bear witness of that relatively extensive meeting. And also today is Ethel's birthday.
Yeah. Well, happy birthday. I don't see her. All right. Okay.
Hopefully she'll be back soon. She's still on leave, but we'll be back very, very soon.
Okay. All right. Was there any other committee reports? All right. We'll move on then to unfinished business. Item G1 is the Administrative Regulation 7-33.3 student uniforms. And this does come to us for action this evening. Dr. Brabrand?
Yes, we did have a chance for you all to hear from the Sheffield principal, Miss Lisa Lee. She is here again this evening with her request around student uniforms. She shared with you her community engagement and parent engagement in making this decision for next year, and we'll be glad to take any additional questions if there are any. Otherwise, we'd be requesting action at this meeting.
Any questions? No.
I move to approve the recommendation as presented.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No one. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. School operating budget 2016-17, and this also comes to us for action this evening. This is going to go to Mr. Beckles, or do you want to say?
I think I'll just, a quick summary is we're at the end of another budget process. City Council last week finalized in the second reading its budget, including its transfer to the city schools. So we have clarity there, and we have no changes to the Tier 1 budget request that we presented to you at the prior meeting. We've gone through this for the whole year. We're happy that we got more funds. Did we get everything funded in our Tier 1 list that we would like? No, particularly the market adjustments that fell short of what we ideally wanted. It's my intention as superintendent to put those market adjustments back on Tier 1 for next year's budget process. And Mr. Beckles, I don't know if there's anything else you'd want to share, or were there any other questions that you had from board members that other board members hadn't had a chance to get feedback on?
Nor do I have any comments to make, further comments to make on the budget.
All right. Board member questions, comments? No?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No one. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, that takes us to our next item, Lynchburg City Schools Equity and Inclusiveness Guidelines. Dr. Brabrand.
Thank you, Ms. Haas.
I'd like it to clarify, it says that it's listed for action here, but this doesn't seem like it would be an action item.
I think we may move forward to get consensus from the board to have the administration move forward with the plan. I think you've got some additional information to present to us tonight.
Right. I could clarify. What we want is just majority support that we're headed in the right direction with the framework that we presented. As you all know, this board did ask me to come and bring a framework to you all in May. And we brought you guidelines at the last meeting. And what we want to do today, based on your feedback, was to take these guidelines and try to provide a timeline or a sense of priority around those. It's no new information, but I know Dr. McLean and the Equity Task Force, we spent time trying to sort of prioritize what are some of the more difficult parts of this framework. or the more urgent parts of the framework? What are some that are perhaps less urgent? And then which ones are more easy to implement and which ones would be more difficult to implement? So we want to get your feedback on that. We don't need final feedback tonight. We know you're seeing this just framework of the existing guidelines being presented tonight, but we would like, if not tonight, by the next board meeting, support that the will of the board is here, that this is the right framework, that the principles we shared, the 7 principles, are the right principles to begin to move forward with our work on equity and inclusiveness in the school system. So I'd love to turn it over to Dr. McLean to help sort of provide you with the way that we're breaking down the guidelines.
You have a handout that matches what's on the screen here. One of the pieces or questions or feedback we received from the board last meeting was being able to look at what would happen when. We went back and met with the Equity Task Force. They provided a framework to address that issue, and we basically put things in 4 quadrants. Those items of implementation that were more urgent than others but would take longer to implement, those that were more urgent, quicker to implement, and then further down, those that are a little less urgent, take longer to implement, those less urgent and quicker to implement. We put the different items in those quadrants. We identified a timeline for when those would take place, and did this to try to provide a little bit more clarity of what would happen when, in the spirit of the guidelines that are in front of you. We haven't made any updates in what we're presenting tonight to the content. We've just organized it and given, I guess the only update is giving some timelines to those, but organizing those next steps. We appreciate the Equity Task Force. They have been with us as we have taken feedback along the way and help organize it and have their support in being able to move forward to make these happen if the will of the board is to support us to move forward.
Board members have questions?
All right, we'll take questions, or if this is something you want to give feedback on over the next 2 weeks, and we can come back at the next board meeting and just get a sense of your overall support for the guidelines as we presented and our potential timeline on how we would try to implement these guidelines. If there's things that you want to see in it that aren't or that don't need to be in it, any of that feedback is helpful too. I know this is an important topic for the board and the community, and we want to start out on the right foot as we move forward with this.
Yeah, I do think this is an important topic, and I think a lot of the outlined items here, I think I can see them coming back to the board individually for specific action.
Okay.
I think you've got a lot of policies to be addressed, MOU agreements that would need to be approved by the board. I think some of these are operational, it looks like, in nature, that you really wouldn't need board approval to begin to operate under those new processes or procedures. Other board member comments? Dr. Coleman?
Just good thinking, and I know we don't want to take up unnecessary time, but we can see it there and we can see it here, of course, but the more urgent, quicker to implement section seems to be nicely placed. I'm just wondering, do we need to emphasize by at least saying what these items are to those who might want to know or can't see or whatever? And Madam Chair, it does appear that if we're dealing with June on some of these things and the board does have to approve it, then that would have to be for the next meeting, if not tonight. But this seems to be nicely placed and thought through relative to all that were given last time.
Any other comments for Ms. Carter?
What I noticed is that there appears to be more for the department that Ethel oversees to do, equity and what, I forgot what it is. But what other support will she have? or how much, how will her department be supported to accomplish some of those additional tasks?
Well, we're in the middle of taking, if the board moves forward with us wanting to go in this direction, to figure out how we're going to resource all of these things. That department we create. Dr. McLean, did you want to jump in with something?
If I could, actually, these are spread out across quite a few offices in the department. And Ethel's office actually only has a few of these. So, I mean, for example, the calendar of dates and related resources, I mean, some of that is our curriculum office. It is jointly with Ethel's office. Those curriculum resources would be jointly. The holiday observances as well. Once you get to discipline and climate, a lot of that is Miss Brown and the work that she does. Policies, dress code, that is the work that's also coming tonight about discipline policy. So that's work that's kind of been done and is now presented to the board, and we'll make adjustments based on feedback. So if you training down there, a lot of that is some of our staff that work on training. So it really does spread across the department,
I was
and we work
talking
together.
directly to the equity and inclusiveness guidelines. There, I noticed there were a lot more that was really targeted to her department versus so much this. And I know they were talking about starting like the leadership teams in the different schools, and who would they report to, and would they support her department? Mm-hmm. Because I know that that department was mentioned quite often.
Yeah, we did bring additional, when we formed that office, we did bring an additional staffing full-time equivalent position to that. We need to monitor the workload of all of our departments. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We do have some dollars that we can use for professional development or the need for consultants to do some of the training work. We know it can't all necessarily be on central office staff. And we're trying to look through, as we look at training as one of the big components, what are dynamic ways that we can do the training? Because it's part of the whole training piece is finding the time, and how does it become a regular part of the culture? Are there things that we can do face-to-face? Is there some stuff that we might be able to do online? Small group, whole group? We're looking through those pieces. But we know that as we move through this is the beginning of a plan that we've just developed and want your feedback on. There may be some additional resources as we prepare our budget for next year that we may need to bring to fully do this plan. So I think it's monitoring it and recognizing if there's more here than we can appropriately resource, that we'll ask those resources from the board to get the work done.
Did I see a hand over here? Dr. Coleman.
And it may or may not be to Sharon's point, but I do know that the Equity Task Force itself will become broader in terms of community engagement or participation around all of these various areas, that there need to be equitable representation on the task force. And I think we enumerated several of those subgroups. And so the task force itself will be composed of individuals that would represent all of the substratas where there needs to be representation, input, resourcing, support, etc. And I think that's going to be a huge help. And of course that hadn't happened yet, but up to this point, the Equity Task Force was maybe just looking at one particular area of focus. But now it appears that there will be so many other groups that will need to be brought into this, and of course that will bring levels of support systems, I think, to help us to get the overall task accomplished.
And that proposed membership will come to us when?
Yep. So the bottom left one that's right there, update membership and provide training for Equity Task Force. So that would be in the fall, is what's proposed.
Okay. I saw a hand. Was it Dr. Nillis?
I guess I see a lot of stuff starting this summer and this fall. I'd be wary about trying to jam too much through at once, especially since school will be starting, and new teachers and new SLL results to try to fit in, and where we're going to go educational-wise. I guess what I'm seeing here, I can consent to as far as the general direction. Like I just reemphasize, I think timing-wise, I think, early fall, late summer looks pretty busy.
Any other comments? Dr.
Let
McClain?
me comment on a couple things. I do want to acknowledge there's a few things on here that were already in the works that aren't new work, but because they align with what this is, we went ahead and named them and included them. So, for example, the update discipline policies is coming to you this evening. That's already been in the works. The other one, conduct expanded responsive classroom training. That's already scheduled as part of work we were doing. So I want to acknowledge a few of these wouldn't be new work. The majority of them would be, but a few of them are ones that were already.
I understand that.
Yeah. And we can adjust the timeline. The reality of school calendar is such that some of them, if they don't happen at the beginning of the year, they kind of defer to the next year rather than implementation. I mean, you can't really update discipline policies halfway through the year and overhaul that. That's tricky. So some of them we'd be open if there's need to adjust, but some of them may not be just a few months. It may have to go to the next year is what that adjustment might need to be.
Yes, Dr. Jones-Sewell?
Specifically, data and research, you've got developed student and parent semester surveys to be used at classroom and school level. We already have surveys. Will these be different surveys, or will they be questions added to the school climate survey? What kinds of questions are you thinking about?
Yep. So we would look in, there's evolving components at the federal and state level about expectations for surveys, so we have one eye to that. We've been doing surveys tied to our own needs as well as what's in Office of Civil Rights, but the new federal legislation has some updates where they would actually ask for divisions and the state to be measured on social emotional learning is kind of the word that they put to that. So we'd have one eye to that, and we need to see and want to align with that. Part of this, though, is being able to ask and receive feedback that can go directly to a teacher, directly to a team. That would be, there are a number of divisions that have that are a very short number of questions, like less than 10, that give quick feedback that would be done on a totally different scale than the ones that we've been talking about that have sometimes been these 40 to 100 question surveys. So we'd want to align them, but they would have a different purpose and length.
Another question I have is, looking at curriculum, what is educational in terms of some of these topics, and kind of defining that for building leaders and teachers is something that's going to be important. And I know you all have, talked about that. You share in leadership meetings, for example, issues around being sensitive to different religious backgrounds, for example, people of religious backgrounds, but, as we've all seen, that message hasn't seemed to be, be getting through. So I guess I'm curious about where does it fall in here that you, which specific items are going to be geared towards really helping building leaders and teachers understand these issues around sensitivity?
Sure. So I'd say the two that I would point out, I'm going, David, up on the right side, under holiday observances, establishes an FAQ for observances and other components of the guidelines. So some of that is down to more the nitty-gritty of some of what those are. Yes, for example, what does educational mean? We talk about some of the observances having the, kind of two parts to it. Is it educational in nature? And the second piece being, is it something that we would do if we're doing it for one religion? Would we approach it also for another religion as well? So getting to some of that, a little bit more discreteness in there. And if you go down to the training part, further down on that right side, conducting a training on these guidelines, specifically with some of those FAQs with school-based and central office administrators later in the summer. So those are the places I'd say have the biggest overlap with what you're talking about.
Okay, thanks. What is your plan for reporting on results back to the board?
I mean, we can present to the board as frequently as the board would like. I mean, part of what we're trying to do, and we talked about at the Equity Task Force meeting, is how to monitor the impact of these actions with us in terms of what are the right indicators to develop and how we'll monitor those indicators. I think some of the survey data may help with that, but I think that's part of the work that we need to do to make sure, and that the board agrees, what are the right indicators that we want to measure, and what would those indicators look like?
And I will say we had started a second document that parallels or supports this one, which is for each of these, who's in charge of it. The win is already on here, but what would be the outcome measure or indicator for it? That is we're kind of getting the feedback from the board, and if it's in the direction to go forward with these, then we would start laying out those indicators. Some of them are going to be a little bit more concrete, some of them could be a little more challenging.
Dr. Coleman?
Madam Chair, in light of what Dr. Dolan Sewell was just raising in very pertinent questions, is it appropriate to have the consultant, I thought I saw him come in, Dr. Starks, is it appropriate to have him just to give a word or two of what his thoughts are relative to the Equity Task Force in relationship to, you know, some of these things that need to be done? These is obviously not going to be swept under the rug, and it has to be done in a proper timetable, and it has to be done right. But I was just wondering, we never get to hear these last two times from anybody on the Equity Task Force itself, and I'm just curious if that's appropriate, and if so, he doesn't. I don't know. Just seems like to me that's an important part that needs to be interjected in terms of what this is. And
I think the administration should have the opportunity to decide what you would like to present to us and who you would like to have present. I know Ms. Reeves may want to be a part of that presentation. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, and I want to make sure that we get the information that we would like to have from the Equity Task Force. And I think it would be great to hear from the task force.
But building transparency is important in this whole thing. I know we had the Equity Task Force members last time. They've been participating. I don't want to put Dr. Starks on the spot either, but if you'd like to come up and make a couple of comments, you've been participating in the process. If there are other task force members that want to come up, especially if that helps the board figure out whether there's consensus around this framework. We've spent an awful lot of time on this. This is an important topic for the community. If we're not right at the beginning, I want the feedback. So we have no problem. I'd love if the board is okay right now, we could have Dr. Starks come up and offer some insights or thoughts that he might have for you all. We've certainly been working with him this year to give us feedback on things. That's certainly fine.
Is there any objection?
Well, I would just like to say that I certainly would welcome, I would be fine with Dr. Starks coming up. I also don't like the idea of putting someone on the spot, though, who, might be able to present something with a little bit more time ahead of time. I've mentioned in the past that I think it would be a good idea to have someone speak to us like Dr. Starks about best practices and to the extent to which we are kind of on, consistent with best practices out there, having an outsider come in, whether it be Dr. Starks or someone else, that I would like some external validation to the direction that we're going.
I think I saw Dr. Nellis's hand.
Yeah, I was going to say, personally, my interest is in what, instead of, big picture-wise, this looks like, like I said before, I don't really object to what I'm seeing here, but what I'm really anxious to see are some specific actionable items, for the board to address. And with regard to having some outside opinions and kind of review of what we're doing, I think it'd be good to have, really outside people that haven't been involved in Lynchburg City School per se, but have been, involved in systems elsewhere that can kind of come in and have a fresh set of eyes and take a look at things.
Okay. Sounds like maybe a more meaningful use of our time would be to have a planned presentation from the Equity Task Force. That way all the questions could be answered, and we won't, put somebody on the spot and have them come up and maybe not be able to provide the information that we need tonight. So if that's...
And I'm okay with that, but we put people on the spot all the time in our school board meetings. And I'm just noticing that, and that is very true. And I just see us with glassy eyes these last 2 times that the presentation has been made. And I'm just trying to get us so that we can get to the point. I think Dr. Nillis is exactly correct. We need to see that, but it just seems like we, and I think I heard the superintendent saying, I didn't expect him to give any long, drawn-out presentation, but just some confidence that all we've heard from up to this point is Dr. Brabrand and Dr. McLean. It's the second report, and I just think it's helpful to have somebody say something that we're moving with this, because this really involves the community, and community engagement is hugely important. But anyway, I'm satisfied with whatever we do, so we can move on.
Just also like to offer, I think what you have just said is spot on. First off, this is critical. This is core to our culture, which is core to our kids' achievement. And I just see this as one of the most important things that we have worked on, and others have worked on and brought to the board, which is why I also see this as something that's probably in process, and I do feel like it seems like we're going in the right direction, but to put a final kind of stamp of approval that, yeah, this is it, I'm not there yet. We don't have the level of specificity. And I also, again, have a little bit of question about why it's an action item anyways, but that's a whole separate issue. But in general, it seems to me like we're going in the right direction. And
let me do one thing on the action item. The board asked me to bring a plan, and I'm ready to take action when the board's ready to take action. So I don't mean it in anything other than I perceived urgency around these issues. We can speed up or slow down or go slower or get deeper. I'm prepared to do what this board wants to do on this topic. It's a tough topic. I want it thoroughly. And maybe that's back to that whole issue of a vote or majority. I want consensus on this work, because there are going to be bumps. There's going to be other things that happen in our community around race and religion. We know that's going to happen. The stronger the framework is that we start with now, I think the better will be, and the better this board will feel about the superintendent's handling of matters, and this superintendent will feel better about clarity from the board about, is this the right direction or not. So I'm perfectly fine. Sometimes you got to go slow to go fast, so we can slow it down a little bit more and take it by chunks. And I do think that's part of what we brought you tonight, was a way to, and maybe that's the next piece. What are the pieces that we need to dive into more? Like the FAQ, the board's going to want to see the FAQ. The board's going to want to see the MOU. It's not just come back in 6 months and let us know how it goes. But we're open here. There's no, this is something I know the board wants to get right, and I want to get it right too. So we're totally willing to work with you all on what's the right next step.
So,
oh, I have something on another topic.
Well, you haven't spoken yet, so.
Okay, well, while we were going back and forth about who could speak, I felt like he probably could have shared his few thoughts within that time, but that's neither here nor there. I had a question about the curriculum and resources on the top right quadrant. Just in particular, the developed resources for key month observances, example, Black History Month for the year. Just wanting to know what the outcome is expected when you're looking at when you're developing resources for key months. Like, what's the outcome? What's the end game? What are we trying to do?
Well, one of them would be the students being aware of different different people that have contributed to our country, to the world. So, I mean, if you go to some of the different resources that out there, in addition to Black History Month, I mean, Hispanic American Heritage Month, Women's History Month, a variety of different month observances that help increase an awareness of who has contributed and made impacts on our society, and just kind of broaden perspectives and understanding, which gets to a more inclusive place.
Okay, I guess develop the resources when you. I guess I'm just trying to help get an understanding
What the
of
resources
what
would
the
be.
resources are.
So, and a lot of this is like the first one that's kind of matches this identify calendar of dates. There are resources out there that basically give you, whether it's brief announcements. I mean, it's to the level of even sort of a brief announcement that's made today. Hey, here's this day in history. Here's somebody who contributed. Are you aware of this? It's also looking at things that teachers can pull in that tie to their SOL curriculum that may not be what it is that's the kind of standard part. There's places that they can look at those resources. A lot of them are web-based, are the easiest to access, and a lot of it is about people. There's also, is it in this one? I guess it's the one right above it, just understanding also different religious observances. So, for example, understanding why the student who is Muslim isn't eating on a certain time of the year, and understanding what Ramadan is and why that plays in. So quick lessons that are about that tied to what time of year it is. I picture this be a combination right now of what happens that's on a broad level, like an announcement kind of thing, and what happens that are quick resources provided to teachers of how they can integrate tied to what they're teaching at that time.
Okay. Thank you. I just didn't know what those were. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I would appreciate it if the consultant could tell us whether or not this is doable, realistic, and get us to the place working under the leadership of our admin to have something to us on these critical areas. And to me, I think that is important. He can say yes, no on that. It'll take a long time to explain that.
Is that something the board would like to hear this evening or at another time? I'm getting no response.
I do. If it's brief, just a vote yes or no, then I don't see the harm in it.
Would the administration like to pursue that?
And I was going to say, if it's appropriate, as part of our presentation, the Equity Task Force has been part of this work, so it would be a natural.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Did you want to?
I always want to say one other thing before Dr. Starks gets up. and Dr. Starks knows this piece. Part of what even presenting to the board was, whose is this? Is this the Equity Task Force or is this the superintendent's recommendations? These are my recommendations. The task force was advisory. They'll have different opinions, and that's exactly what an advisory group should. So, but I think that was there was a discussion about should everybody from the task force present the presentation. But I think the bottom line was the importance of this to the board, to the community was, what is the superintendent's vision? What is his principles? What is his framework going to be? And now we can start to validate whether you think that's the right framework, both from the board feedback, and I want that, and from others to be external, like, you're trying to do too much too soon, or this is exactly about the right way to hit it, or maybe you've not done enough in this area. So, Dr. Starks.
Yes, sir. Here I am. Questions, or should I just begin?
Maybe a little perspective of, you've been in the process really with the task force for the last year and the most recent work on this. How do you feel about it? You've done consulting in other places. You've been working with us this year as a consultant. What are your concerns about the ability to get the work done and the timelines established, or are there key components that might be missing from the guidelines that cause you concern, or things that you think are positive?
Well, I would like to caution everyone. The term I would use is awareness, and understanding that awareness in a negative sense that has brought us to this current situation didn't happen overnight. And understanding awareness of these issues and move them from being sensitive topics that people aren't comfortable discussing and having lives behind this terminology will afford us a different empathetic way of looking at the responses that we're looking for. So in layman's terms, caution is where I think the term is about expectations and results. We have a great plan here, action item out. We have great specifics for his intentions, but I am concerned about our mindset, about the awareness of the expectations of what it would look like in order to get true holistic change in Lynchburg City Schools around equity. For example, situation at Dunbar occurred, and we pulled out two terms around race and religion. And from the outside looking in, we were not ready to have this conversation, and the community, from being there only 2 years, had to choose sides. And I think if we were more aware as a community about what equity was compared to equality, that I don't think that the community would have responded in the way that we did in choosing between the two. So when you have a term of equity, and I often use an example of 3 kids trying to look at a Hill City baseball game. And if you have 3 kids at different sizes, 5 foot tall, 5'5", and maybe 6 foot, if they're trying to look over a 6-foot fence, how can we make that happen? If we have put 3 boxes to the side for each one of those kids to have a box, we would have provided equality for each kid to see the baseball game. But in substantive terms, the kid that's 5 foot tall will now only be able to see maybe 5 foot 5 feet. The kid that was 5'5" would maybe be able to see 6 foot, and the kid that was 6 foot can now see 6'5" if these boxes were 5 feet tall, 5 inches tall. But the problem with that is the kid that started off at 5 foot still can't see over the 6-foot fence. So we could give the kid, and here's the picture here, the kid that's 5 foot tall, we give him 2 boxes, give 1 box to the kid that's 5'5", and share a box for the kid that's 6 foot, or maybe not a box. Then we would have what's called equity. And I'm not exactly sure if we understand that equity is what's needed in order to have a conversation to get to equality. And we often use equality in replace of equity for fear that someone is going to be given something that they didn't deserve. And I want to remind us about what others were taken away when they did deserve it that has not been given. It's okay to say that we should pull ourselves up from our bootstraps. A meritocracy is a great term, but everyone doesn't have boots. So the awareness of this conversation that I think is important in understanding the implementation is understanding we didn't get here overnight. So some of the dates and the deadlines that we have in order to report that the implementations are working, I don't think that they are fair to Lynchburg City Schools and saying we can show you what we've done in 3 months for something that's been done for hundreds of years. As far as measurement and outcomes, if I may speak to that, if you look in this country, one of the most difficult things is to represent statistically prevention. And that's where we put the least amount of our money. We put our money in the punishment, we put our money in the treatment, rehabilitation, and we put less money in the prevention. If you look at prevention, the synonym for prevention in this country is education. So prevention means that I provide you with information with hopes that the behavior doesn't happen. So what we're doing in looking at equitable and inclusiveness policies, we're looking at the code of conduct for the employees as well as students not to occur. So the situation at Dunbar, we don't want it to happen because we've made the awareness, and we understand that awareness is going to take time because it took time for us to get here. So in order to show you that we have done a good job from Equity Task Force and Inclusiveness, these events don't occur again. And then if we come in every month with a report to say, hey, these events aren't occurring, that would be the evidence that could be questioned on whether or not we're doing the job. But that's where understanding prevention and education in this country comes in. But that's what we want. But we most often are reactive to these situations and come into the room to have the conversation because now they're in our faces in lieu of understanding that the awareness and the education is the preventive model that we want to eventually get to. So I hope I didn't confuse anyone, but I wanted to respond to some of the comments and some of the questions and really focusing on, it's a mindset. And from that mindset comes the behavior that we're here doing now, with actually discussing the action items to be implemented, with understanding that it's going to take some time to get the results that we're looking for. Anything specifically?
Do you have any questions? No?
And I do think we have a good model that we've presented as far as matching up the specifics with the detailed outcomes.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. How would the board like to move forward on this item? I think we can all say that we certainly support this work and support moving forward in the plan. I don't think there's anybody that objects to the work that's being done or moving forward with the plan. Is that a fair statement? Is that?
If that's the case, we can then wait and bring you as needed key other pieces of the items on here that we think would need the board's, check in with as we move forward. The FAQ, the MOUs, other pieces, and kind of bring it to you and get that same sort of consensus that we're getting tonight as we keep going through the pieces of the plan. We may have some problems around thinking, Ms. Carter, about your comment. If we have comments if we have challenges around resources or logistics or community, I might need to bring those back to you and just say, look, I'm stuck a little bit, or I know what Dr. Stark said too about being aggressive on the timeline. I didn't want you to think I didn't take it seriously. That's part of what that is. So I'd rather be told to slow down than speed up. And we can slow down as needed. We're going to try to meet these deadlines, and I guess maybe that is part of the feedback out of tonight. Is I'd like permission if we find that we're trying to rush something too much. Dr. Nelson's point about how you're going to get all this ready for the summer, that we could come back and tell you we might need to slide this a month or a quarter and start the training at our November professional development days instead of August. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just suggesting that we could have that flexibility to bring that to you if that's okay. That'll work for us.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
I was going to say, I think from a general overall point of view that, this looks like the right path forward, and there's a lot to be done, and it's unrealistic to, I think, right now put firm dates in and say you're going to meet him, because there's going to be a train wreck or several, and we need to do this right.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
So.
Okay.
But it's
And I think, too, it's
comprehensive, to me, this is a really great start. This is what I had, I didn't have specifically this in mind, but certainly the attention to detail and the spirit of it is certainly what I had hoped for personally.
And I think Dr. McLean alluded to continuing to develop this plan with more specific details and assignments to particular departments and that kind of thing. I think if you keep the board in the loop on those.
We could have almost showed, we have the schematic, but it's not filled out. So we kind of had a debate, did I want to show you a chart with nothing on it? Just didn't feel like what I wanted to do, but I didn't want to do that to Dr. McLean or staff members. But what we will do is as we get that updated, we can share that with you and then get feedback based on that and some of the other pieces that we heard tonight.
And as I see this, having served on the board for so long, this may be an item that becomes so interwoven in so many meetings that the board will have the opportunity to provide so much feedback that you'll get the sense of what you feel like you need from the board.
Yeah, and we had the promise plan that we shared with you in the fall, and then we brought elements of that to you. We've been doing discipline. You're seeing gifted tonight. You've seen it woven in sort of that same way, and I think maybe a little bit like the promise plan, our work around equity and inclusiveness can follow sort of that same. It can be integrated into the promise plan, but also we can bring elements of it back to you on an as-needed basis, or as we're in the middle of implementation or needing board direction as we face an obstacle or a challenge or a success. So I think we got what we need.
Okay. All right, we will move on then to our next item, Lynchburg City Schools Gifted Plan Update. Dr. McLean, that goes to you. And I do believe that we need to get this to the state by July 1st, so you're hoping for action this evening.
We would like action if possible this evening. What we were planning to do this evening is there were some questions. When Ms. Sawyer made this presentation last week, she wanted to be able to just provide some clarification and response to some of those questions, and had some folks to help do that. I want to introduce also Heather Bowling, whereas Ms. Sawyer is unfortunately retiring and leaving us at the end of the month. Ms. Bowling is going to take on a number of the leadership responsibilities around our gifted work. So.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson, Vice Chairperson, school board members, Dr. Brabrand. The last time I was here, I shared with you key updates to the gifted plan. This evening, Heather Bowling and myself are excited to lay out specific objectives in certain key areas of the plan. We're hoping that this follow-up with additional information will answer any questions that you might have. When addressing changes to the gifted plan, we referenced other divisions and current research on best practices about meeting the needs of students with attributes of giftedness. This plan moves us from a more traditional place to one that focuses on putting in place services that meet the needs of identified students. This includes a better understanding of the different attributes of giftedness and the realization that our students have special needs and require curriculum that offers rigor and challenge. One of the key areas, not only in the gifted plan, but also for all children, is differentiation. Heather and two teachers from Paul Monroe Elementary School will now present this aspect of the plan.
For 2016-17, one of the key areas, not only in the gifted plan, but for all children, is differentiation. We know that within the division, the use and practice of differentiation lies on a continuum, from strictly whole group instruction to full implementation of differentiation through various stations where activities are designed to meet the needs of all students. What you see here are the goals and strategies that will move teachers along that continuum so that the majority of teachers are instructing at the full implementation end of the spectrum. We invited two teachers to speak on their success with small group differentiated instruction. We have Heidi Oliver, who is a second grade teacher at Paul Monroe, and Paula Ryan, who is a third grade teacher at Paul Monroe. You two ladies would come up, please.
Good evening. I have been using differentiated instruction in my classroom for the 7 years I've been teaching. 6 of those 7 years, I started implementing it with small group guided math instruction, which incorporates differentiation. When I began, I felt like I was making more work for myself than was needed. I called upon a coach from Lynchburg City Schools to come in and help me make something that was difficult for me easier. That person provided me with guidance and input, and most importantly helped me develop the organization that I needed to make that easier for me to do within my classroom. That was 6 years ago. At this point, using differentiation in my classroom, using small group guided math instruction in my classroom on a daily basis means I have no whole group instruction. All of my instruction is small group. My lesson planning is less, and the amount of work I put in once the organizational piece is figured out is actually more of a facilitator than acting as a teacher and being in control. So I hope that helps you understand from my perspective that there is a continuum that teachers follow, I think, to become better at this. I, of course, 6 years ago it was a lot of work for me, and I feel like now, 6 years later, it's a lot less work for me.
Good evening. My name is Heidi Oliver, and I teach second grade. I, too, use differentiation in the classroom and have been doing it for a number of years. I'm still growing. I'm always looking for literature or on the computer looking for ways to better my differentiation. But I do much of the same things, take a pre-test and a post-test, and then I try to look at, what I want those children to know by the time they get to their post-test. With their pre-test results, we cluster the children and then give all the groups different opportunities to learn the concepts in a complex and a deep level. We have seen great results with it at Paul Monroe, and it's not just with our gifted children. I liked what Ms. Bowling was saying. It's all the children. And I'll share a little story with a fourth grade. This year I also in the afternoon was doing for a number of weeks some SOL prep with third and fourth grade math. And my fourth grade group, sad to say, I thought with 45 minutes I couldn't differentiate. I don't know why I was thinking that in the first couple of weeks or week or two. And I was coming out exhausted. We were doing it in the afternoon. I had 10 children. Mentally and physically, I think they were coming out exhausted. And then all of a sudden I had an aha moment and said, why am I teaching it this way? Let me teach it in a small group. So I was always pre-testing them to know what the next week's skills were going to look like. I would pre-test, and then I clustered the children into two groups. And then the skills that the children needed to work on, I gave them some choices. I would work with small group with instruction on what we needed to learn. Then the children out in the regular classroom, they were laying on the floors with their Chromebooks and on desks and things like that. But I was giving them videos that they could choose some ways to learn, like elapsed time or different skills that they needed to learn. They would look at 3 videos and then they would choose the one that they liked the best that fit their needs, and then they had to justify why I liked that skill. It was very powerful. These kids were engaged and they were taking ownership with their own learning. So they became experts, and I think they've proven that they've been very successful, and it was on a deep level for them. So that gives you just a little bit of an idea of what differentiation can do. And you can do it, I know sometimes people say in an elementary you have a little bit more time, but you can do it even in a 45, 50-minute block as well. So, thank you.
Or not. There we go. Oh, let me go back in. Okay. Cluster grouping is a research-based practice in which gifted and high-ability students are grouped together in clusters of 5 to 7 students. The purpose of cluster grouping is so that like-minded students with similar academic needs have the opportunity to collaborate with one another. This is similar to how students with special needs are currently grouped. Kathleen and I have already met with each principal at the elementary level to discuss cluster grouping for next year, and are planning to meet with middle school principals within the next week to help ensure that cluster grouping can begin in both elementary and middle schools for the 16-17 school year. In the 17-18 school year, we will continue cluster grouping, adding more support in areas where we need it, and also begin flexible grouping. Flexible grouping is where students have the ability to move in and out of groups based on their particular areas of need per unit or skill. In order to extend gifted services in middle school, the plan calls for more awareness of the characteristics of gifted students, training on appropriate differentiation strategies, and the specific needs of students with attributes of giftedness. For the 2016-17 school year, the secondary coaches will be trained and disseminate this information to the teachers through a variety of means, including professional development workshops, co-teaching, and co-planning to meet the needs of identified students. Identified students at the middle schools will be cluster grouped to better meet their needs. In the following school year, 17-18, we will continue to train secondary coaches and in turn teachers in best practices for challenging students with attributes of giftedness, A key component of the plan for this year is to implement problem-based learning in the core content areas. These real-world, inquiry-based application problems afford students the experience of a professional working in a particular field. One major goal of the plan is to support students and parents in the transition between elementary to middle and then middle to high school. This will be supported with the Scholars with Promise program, and all efforts made to strengthen gifted services at the middle school will be evaluated through parent and student surveys. Stephanie?
Recognizing that when we begin a new program, sometimes not everything can be done all at once. This slide shares what we would like to accomplish the first and second year of the program, Scholars with Promise. This summer, we have put in place training for Scholars of Promise. Lead instructional coaches and principals will attend a day-long training on understanding the aspects of the program, what their role will entail, and what they will be able to accomplish for our underrepresented students. The first year of the program, we will continue adding experiential, hands-on learning in math and English for students in grades K through 2, building on what the DEP teachers did this school year. The second half of the year, we will begin to identify students in grades 2 and 5, since these are key areas for identification for other division programs. Second grade is when students are identified for full-time services at the Gifted Opportunity Center, and fifth grade is a transitional year for our fifth grade students as they plan for middle school and the future. In the following year, we will now expand teacher training with problem-based learning skills. Continue to add more critical thinking activities with the goal to eventually have one activity for each unit of study in math and English. For the visual and performing arts, I'd like to share with you the plan for the next 3 years so you can see how we plan to build this program. This coming year, we will review what we presently have, where we can build, develop identification criteria, and use the expertise of our resource teachers to help develop a program that meets the needs of our students while setting the foundation for years to come. The following year, we will begin identification and program development. We will offer a variety of options for music, art, and theater, with differentiated in classes, pull-out classes built into the school schedule, and the opportunities for enrichment classes during the school year and summer. Plus, we will continue working with TC Miller and Dunbar Middle School for opening up slots for students that will allow for more fine arts development. In conjunction with this, we will also look for ways to explore and build in opportunities for students to have cultural experiences that shine a light on what they can accomplish. In 1819, the plan will begin to incorporate an expansion of the program through community involvement with mentorships, working with surrounding school divisions to orchestrate a festival of the arts, and offering students skills that will move them along a career path in the arts if so desired. Thank you for this opportunity to communicate our vision for the division, and I trust what we share better helps you understand the plan we are submitting to you for approval. Do you have any questions?
Questions? Comments? Ms. Carter?
I have seen the cluster grouping work. I know Mrs. Oliver, I know she left, but years ago at Robert S. Payne, when she saw students that were really academically gifted, she had them do different work, more in depth, on the computer. And this was before it was popular, so that's great. The other thing is opening up slots at TC Miller and Dunbar Middle School for identified students. One of the things that I heard from a student that transitioned from TC Miller to Dunbar and wanted to participate in the theater program was that there was a cost.
Oh.
So that turned off that student. And like it was $1,500, the cost to participate. Have anyone else heard? Yeah, so we have to identify that. That turns off a lot of students, especially coming from T.C. Miller, where you're participating and in all these groups, then you go there, first thing you hear, well, you got to come up with $1,500. So that really has to be targeted and looked at.
Ms. Ford.
I'm really happy to see, well, there's a lot of exciting stuff that I think some of us have been really looking forward to for a long time, and it's nice to see it written down, and it's so ordered and makes such good sense, and so thank you for your hard work on this. I will say too, the biggest relief I get if we can do this right is that it's not done, the way we develop things, or the way we implement things from school to school is not uniform at all. Like, we have some schools that just get it, and within 2 weeks your kid is differentiated in kindergarten, and then we have other schools, and you talk to parents, they're like, no, my school said that we don't differentiate for gifted until 3rd grade, and I'm like, I know that that's not true, and you should have emailed me months ago. But things like that, if one school's really getting it right, there's no reason for the other schools to not get it right, and this is a roadmap for all schools to get it right, and so that's heartening. I will say that is true. as a parent that has had a kid at Dunbar, when you get the first week of school a phone call, saying, hey, we want you to come, but the kids know going into it that it's going to be, and maybe that's changed. I did get a phone call one year, several years ago, saying how much theater was going to cost before kids even auditioned for the play. I would like to think that has changed, but there is a culture that people know and expect certain plays and certain experiences at Dunbar in particular to cost a lot of money. And so I'm years out from it, and it's still in my brain. I assume it does. So, and I would assume to know more than your average parent. So if I have not had that corrected for me, and if it's different now, then we need to correct that for all the families that come through, so that people know that that there's access for all the children that want to participate.
And I think in this particular example, my understanding, because my kids looked into this also, it's for at least for one specific play, if you're going to be a part of it, this is the play that is going to travel to different.
It's the showcase play.
It's the showcase play, and you've got to put up money in order to participate that, and they.
Yeah. And I've had friends ask me questions because my kid did theater all through Dunbar. I've had friends email me as recently as a couple months ago saying, "Oh, is this still the thing? Is this how they do it?" And I don't have a kid there anymore, and I don't know any differently. But I'm saying that just to say this is the public perception. We have parents that aren't sure and assume that some of these experiences are going to be some of our showcase gifted pieces are going to cost money, and so we need to figure that out. But other than those little flags and stuff, this is exciting to see, and thank you so much for the hard work on this.
And thank you.
That's great.
Thank you.
Nellis.
I guess focusing on the visual and performing arts one, it sounds good. Looking at the elementary, T.C. Miller in particular is focus on that, but I look at how that would be implemented at Heritage Elementary, where they have art supplies in the hallway, and they're bursting at the seams, and like this sounds good, but implementation, it's like it's not clear how that's really going to play out for that particular school, and that's really just a comment.
And I think
maybe
that's why this first year, that we're going to be looking at all those different things and strategizing what we do, because we do want that access to all our children and how we can accomplish that.
I think I was going to speak a little bit about that as well. I love T.C. Miller, obviously, because I have kids there, and I think I've been lucky because I've been able to see, they've been cluster grouping since we've been there. And then to move over to the Go Center to see that too. I remember mentioning flip videos to somebody when we started at the Go Center, and it was a local doctor, and she was like, whoa, that's, you're being able to teach tomorrow's lesson ahead of time and be able to get those kids into the groups they need to be already tomorrow. So I think, especially with the Chromebooks, that's something that we could be implementing now, and as the kids are getting their Chromebooks. I worry a little bit, especially about T.C. Miller. I don't know about the space issues at Dunbar, but T.C. Miller is already packed. We got lines of wait lists and classrooms that there's three rooms for each classroom. I mean, there's just no more room. So I would love to see everybody go there, have the opportunity to go there. It's just going to be really hard to narrow that down when, we've got like teachers' kids who can't get in there and things like that. So that's my comment.
One other thing, I noticed the way that last presentation that had the different identifications, like the full day. We already, speaking of space, we already have more kids identified for full day Go than Go can hold. So what do we have, what do we do with them? Then do we just kick down their level of service when they are staying in their home schools, or do you anticipate that all of these other supports that we've got in place will give them still what they need? Because there's still a giant wait list for them.
Both.
Okay.
I really think that as we look at a more holistic approach, we can better clarify what needs children really have and where we can meet the needs best. And for some students, that full-time service is what they really need. And some students, as we gear up more in the base schools, that service will be met there too. So it works both ways.
Ms. Carter? Just to go back, but if we can find a way to stop that report of the theater costing that much, because then the student in the what's the first year, 6th grade? Then they just say, I can't participate in theater, it costs too much. Yeah. So that really needs to be, unless it's true, and that there's some support, but if not, then that message needs not to be reported.
Anyone else? All right. This item does come to us for action this evening. What's the board's pleasure? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No one. Motion carries. All right. We will move on to our next item, which is Lynchburg City School Board student discipline policies and regulations. Dr. McClain. And this comes back to us at our next meeting.
Hello again. Discipline policies. As the board is, thank you. As the board is aware, we have had a number of work sessions, but we wanted to back up for a moment to make sure the public's aware of the work that has been going on around the discipline policies. And then I want to highlight a few things that are updates since the last work session as well. So, thank you. So the purposes of why we're doing a discipline policy review, several things just to point out. One is we very much want to make sure we're promoting increased equity in the way discipline's administered. We've shared data previously about some of the disproportional impacts, and we want to be able to target that and figure out the way policies aren't the only lever for that, but they are one of them, and how we make that better. A second purpose is that we want, sometimes discipline can be thought of as what is the right punishment. We want discipline to be thought of more and more as the way that we teach the right behavior and we intervene to help students be successful. And make sure that the policies align with that view. Third, we want to make sure the policies are as clear and efficient as possible. We are working with, as I'll go to the other ones, with VSBA. Sometimes legality and efficiency aren't necessarily always the same, but do the best we can with that. We are in the broader effort of migrating all our LCS policies to match those of the Virginia School Boards Association, so this is also part of that review. There's another reason we're doing that. And this is also part of our agreement with the Office of Civil Rights. So we're doing this not solely because of that. We're doing that for all those reasons mentioned above, but it also serves a purpose of fulfilling the agreement to review, identify places where we need to improve, and implement those updated policies. What we've been doing, or what we're going to do after we have approved policies, is some things that really now take this into action. So as we've been going through this process, we've been identifying what types of procedures and forms need to accompany these policies. We'll then provide training for school-based administrators and teachers on these updates, communicate the key pieces of these to parents, and really this last one is a way that we're going to do a lot of what's mentioned above, which is take these policies, put them in a handbook to make them as user-friendly as possible for students, parents, and staff. And this makes it a little easier to live on day-to-day and communicate and train folks on them. So that's what we would do next. What we've been doing internally, starting back last fall, I believe, going through March internally. We were looking at existing policies and practices, comparing those to VSBA policies, seeing what we needed to maintain that's unique to LCS, but ultimately migrating to the VSBA policies because those in many cases are based on code. And as you're aware through the work sessions, we talked about a process for that. And basically then did a lot of that migration. We had 3 school board work sessions, April 4th, May 9th, and May 14th, approximately 9+ hours of work that the board's already been involved in. Not that we're counting on these. So what I want to do is just highlight both for the public as well as to kind of remind the board and provide some updates on some of the key things that we have modified within policy. And I've named them here. Long-term suspension process, as the board is aware, one of the main things we're doing is moving from the superintendent to the school board the review of long-term suspensions. And the board will be much more involved. As the board is aware, we shared a flow chart of the actions and how that would take place. The short-term suspension process is also being updated, including adding the right for an appeal of the length of the suspension, and also modifying, so rather than having a panel of different school administrators, it would be the director would be charged with reviewing those appeals and making decisions. Also trying to clarify the way that the short-term suspensions are communicated and the supports that we provide to students, whether we're talking, especially for long-term suspensions. Games, we just went through and made some updates. A lot of it is to VSBA policy, looking at some of the language, different ways that students may represent themselves as part of a gang, and that needs to be an ever-evolving process where we are in constant communication with the police. We added our own policy in here on parent appeals and complaints. We wanted a policy that clarified the right of a parent or student to express concern and receive a response, and a way to elevate that beyond the school when needed. So we added that. Since our last meeting together in a work session, we did go back to the special education related sections. We clarified the language. As the board is aware, we had sort of a placeholder that we would come back to that. We needed some legal review and consultation, which we received, and we've made those updates, really clarifying and matching a lot of the VSBA policy. The 2 areas that I would say are often the most popular for debate, and that we have made some updates to since the last work session, and I'm going to dive into those just a little bit more deeply. One is we're calling personal communications electronic devices, most often thought of with cell phones, but not to eliminate that there are other electronic devices that sometimes are used. The main changes that we have from our current policy, we keep things in place mostly as is for high school. We have de-emphasized the use of cell phones as being an available tool during instruction because we want Chromebooks to be that common piece that goes across students in the classroom. We have at middle school kept the policy basically as it is. We have at high school too added language about not using video when students should have an expectation of privacy. So we've added a statement in there about the use of a cell phone or another electronic device to take video to prohibit that. And we've also modified for elementary school to allow there to be cell phones for students to have if they're kept off and out of sight, and that's mainly for family needs at times for safety for students before and after school. So those are the main modifications we made with cell phones. Let me go to the dress code one. I'll kind of complete this and then stop for questions. So the dress code, with some good feedback from the board last time, we have removed and modified language with a real eye to how we're treating gender within the policy, and tried to modify to match the way that it was in the VSBA for the most part. We really simplified to say there's 4 areas of focus with this, as you have seen in your notes, and a focus on clothing that is loose-fitting and could cause dangers in terms of tripping or in a science lab or whatever it may be like that. A focus on footwear, and footwear is an important one because that actually is probably where most of our accidents occur. with inappropriate footwear, whether that is, whether that is like a flip-flop kind of thing where somebody can come out of their shoe, or the slipperiness of it, or a large heel, whatever that may be. We also, and this is always tricky in terms of how to use the language around it, but we talked about the showing of revealing of skin or highlighting private areas, and so we named that within an area in the policy, and also hats and head coverings. All of these also, especially as I mentioned, the hats and head coverings are with also a deference to religious or health-related reasons that there may need to be exceptions. We did take this and get some feedback. We had a combination of a focus group at a high school that was a mix that also took parents, students, and staff. We also had some email feedback that we were doing. And I would name really 5 themes to that feedback. 1, whatever we do, communication proactively and reactively is really important. People need to know what the policy is and the updates. And what was meant by the reactive communication was around the notion that early on, very beginning of the school year, if something's not right, say it right away, communicate with the family. Don't wait till the 3rd or 4th reminder if it's wrong the first time. Let people know right away. And not just beginning of the year, but season changes when we go from winter to spring, that kind of thing. There's a lot of debate, and this is probably the hardest one. There's one sort of thought that is be as specific as possible on what it is you want students to wear or not wear. And as legal counsel advised at the time, whenever you make something super specific, what you often do is include things you didn't mean to include when you do that. So we want to be specific when we can, and so they said be specific, and some of it was around footwear kinds of things. Can you name what you mean with footwear that's not safe or something like that? And so trying to be specific when we can, but we also need to acknowledge there are a lot of times you just simply cannot be specific. And what you need to do when you can't be specific is you need to train people on how to make good judgments in those cases. So think about what we do not outside of dress code when we think of just like interacting with students around behavior. You can't name if a student says this is exact language. You need to train people on how to react to situations. So be specific or train people depending on the situation was the second theme. The third is we need to model as a staff. We cannot ask students to wear certain things or abide by a dress code if we as staff are not doing that. So we need to make sure that that is a part of what we do. There needs to be consistency as much as possible, school to school. And the other 5th theme of feedback was really keep it in perspective. We can't go hyper vigilant on dress code, and that becomes our number 1 priority because we have a lot of other priorities that are out there. But keeping it perspective doesn't mean ignore it either. And so try to find that right balance. That was the feedback we had. So one of the things that we were looking to do, and we're going to show you sort of an early draft of this, if you will, was trying together with the policy and the training we'd like to provide is to also provide some visuals and communication, get students involved. We got students involved from one of our schools in an art class to give us an early kind of glance at the type of thing we might be able to do. So do you have the... we borrowed from some ideas of what we saw in some other divisions. And so the idea of getting some posters that basically show both for males and females what are examples of, positive examples of clothing, and what might be some examples where there could be problems, and what might need to be changed. So you see in here the language, so like the student, so we have 2 male figures on the left, an example of not having head coverings or messaging with the beer mug on the shirt, or the loose-fitting clothing, and trying to use some of the language that is in the policy to show examples of what that might be. And you'll also notice some of the over on the right, the clothing that is showing more than ultimately is what we're talking about, but we're trying to strike that balance of not being super specific where you then have some examples where different shapes just don't work with that, but also trying to follow what the policy is, and you see the flip-flop piece there too. So this was an early draft trying to give a useful assignment to an art student near the end of the year to bring something like this to the board to get your feedback on the directionality of trying to find, nice time to come back into that, of trying to find the balance between trying to provide a policy and then give some examples and then the training that would go with it. We share this based on the feedback that we feel like what we heard from the board and would like your thoughts. The discipline policies as a whole, which are being just for information this evening, but also your feedback on some of the specifics we provided.
Board feedback, Ms. Poore.
I want that shirt with the alien on it. Thanks for so quickly figuring out something that kind of really got to the heart of what we were talking about in that last meeting with regard to the student dress. I will say, you really, I don't know what I expected, but that you said it, the training, like you can either be super specific or we can train people how to adequately talk to our girls, and it's specifically girls. I mean, there's some issues with boys and they get nailed for some stuff, but the way we speak to our young women and our girls, literal girls, just this week had a parent that was concerned about the messaging that was coming home with the kindergartner that was going to a spray ground and the need to cover up their parts when they wear bathing suits, and just the language that we use that starts at such an early age. Cultural competency and how we speak to our women, our young women, our girls is critical. And so I think if you have healthy adults understanding the issue, you can have an open-ended policy like this and kids will do what is expected of them in a reasonable way. And I'm really, really grateful that you guys see that. And I think that a lot of good things can come from that. Just even having that conversation. I mean, that ties in. You said earlier that in talking about the equity piece, it's going to pop up in a lot of other issues in terms, and this is an example of that, because as I mentioned before, we can talk about race all we want, but unless we talk about gender too, and then the intersectional reality of gender and race, we're never going to do right by our young girls of color. Never. And so that is a giant piece of it. You can talk to any high school girl, and we talked about this before. The white girls with certain body styles don't get nailed for the same outfits that the girls of color do, and that's just a known thing, and we need to change that perception. This is a wonderful start. I'm just going to speak for myself that it really pleases me to see such a sweeping change from what we've gotten used to. So thank you for it. And also the cell phone thing. That's great. We're keeping the middle school stuff the same because that seemed to work. So thank you.
Ms. Carter.
This is much more enlightened and progressive than what we had previously. And whether or not people know it, this takes a lot of time. And we took a lot of energy to try to come to an agreement, and you all took it back and even perfected it, so it's great and much better. Because a lot of times when you talk about dress, it's always aimed at the women. That's pretty much who the dress code is aimed at. So this is much better. Great. Thank you.
Dr. Coleman.
Just for informational purposes, around gangs and some of the suspension pieces or engagement with the local police department, in the preparation of this or in the finalization of it, have we ever had any conversation with Richmond City Schools and what they're doing with the police chief there to curtail some of that and the writing of policies that coordinate what they're trying to do?
We've had brief conversations. We did take the MOU that the Richmond folks use with their new police chief, and we used that as we developed our own MOU that we passed last year.
All right.
We haven't had deep ones. We're actually getting reconnected now, honestly, through Gentworth, who has major operations here and in Richmond, around some policy-making work that they're doing with business people coming in and serving as sort of advisor to the superintendent. And the superintendent actually just invited the Education Foundation executive director and myself to attend one of those meetings. We're just trying to get it set up and having a conflict with meetings. But I think there's more we can do with, many schools are doing the work that we're trying to do now, and we need to keep reaching out to folks, and Dr. Bedden is doing a great job in Richmond with many challenges that he has. So it's sharing more and more, and we're starting it. We haven't had as much as we could.
Thank you, sir.
Dacia. Dr. Nellis.
Go back to the dress code. I mean, like what's there, it seems open-ended, it's all reasonable, and then we all know that students of that age tend to push limits or want to try. So you're getting buy-in from the school administrators on the policy change?
Yeah, I mean, we've got the feedback.
They're basically okay with the wording and how it's going to be approached and the training.
We made them aware of it, and we've involved some in the focus groups. I don't know that everybody has said all that they may need to say, but we've gotten that feedback as a start.
Okay.
I think the training probably is going to be the key piece, and the sort of what if this, what if that, and that would need to be part of it.
No, there'll be the first couple of challenges that come up that need to be handled properly.
I do think it's fair to say it's change. It's something we've done one way a long time. But our staff and our principals, I believe, will rise to the occasion. I know we've been talking the entire time, and I see Al Coleman out there when we first shared with them that we were entering into an agreement with the Office of Civil Rights, and that one of those topics was going to be around discipline, our approach to discipline, our policies around discipline. We began and shared with them as we transitioned from Mr. Coleman to Dr. McLean discipline data for their schools so that they could start to look at what that looked like. So they know that these are the steps that we're taking to move in a different direction with discipline. It's not about saying that we don't expect and have high expectations for correct behavior. It's more about how we're going to handle when students fall short of that. What's our approach going to be? And I think we're lining up our policies to be more about prevention, like Dr. Starks talked about earlier, about intervention, and less just about punishment. If punishment would solve the problem, we would have had the issues resolved a long time ago. The punishment track is a track, and it needs to be there, but it needs to be one of the things of last resort, not first resort. So I think we're moving in that direction, and I think our principals honestly have really stepped up to the plate already with PBIS and what Ms. Brown has been doing with the PBIS teams at each school, and this is just going to be the next step on a progression of steps to get better around our attendance, around our discipline policy.
Other comments? Dr. Dolensel?
Just that I know that it's been a really, really long and intense process, and I am just deeply appreciative of people taking the time, administration and board members, to really think through unintended consequences of each, all the various aspects of the policies to come up with language that, you feel can be trainable and implemented with fidelity. So I feel really pleased with the direction we're going.
If I could just share one other thing, and maybe it's not something we're just eager to do all the time, but staff really enjoyed the work session format with the board for this topic, and I think it helps staff do a better job in getting you the outcome that you wanted. And I think there may be other times, like with the equity framework, where a work session approach to some things in the future may be the better way to go than a formal meeting, where we're wanting dialogue, we want the community, and we want it a little more informal. And I think that's just something for the board to think about as you move forward next year on some topics where the work session really allowed us, I think, to come with a better end product than what we would have done if we'd only brought this to you in a series of formal sessions.
I agree. I mean, I think being able to focus on one area at a time in a work session is really critical to getting it right. So thank you. Anybody else have any other comments? Just to thank the administration for all of your hard work. I know a lot of hours were spent before it came to us, and then of course afterwards making our tweaks. But thank you all. I know a lot of people were involved in that.
Team. Yes.
Thank you. All right. And this will come back to us on June 21st. All right. Our first item under new business this evening is health insurance, and this is going to go to Mr. Beckles, but let me also say that this is going to come to us for action this evening because the city would like for us to have this decision made so that they can put this into their agenda for their Tuesday meeting next week, so.
I would just say, I think I mentioned to the board some months ago that I had checked with the city to make sure we had a time frame that when this approval had to be in. It was originally supposed to be done the same time the city does theirs, in the September time frame. They sent us an email last week, they moved the time frame up. So that's the reason why it's for a decision tonight. Previous to that, we were on schedule, but things change and we are where we are at this point. As you know from my regular monthly meetings, I've been updating you on where I thought health claims were going, and we were slightly above what budget was. So tonight I'm bringing you a request to transfer $600,000 from our healthcare reserve of $1,740,000 that we have at the city. And so people don't get too alarmed about it. One of the reasons I built up the reserve is for situations like this. That prevents us from having this up and down effect when things do go, when the claims do exceed our budget, nor do we have to take more money from our employees to cover the shortage. So the fact that the reserve is for this very same purpose. I just want people not to think that something unusual has happened. We knew at some point, I mean, we had some very good runs on our healthcare claims reports, so it's good. Unfortunately, it's only at this point $600,000. So we do have that reserve that we can draw from. And then as we go through the end of the year with our fund balance, I would build a reserve or request that we build a reserve back up, so in the event it happens again, we can do the same thing. So we are requesting to transfer $600,000 from that $1.7 million reserve to cover our anticipated excess of health claims greater than our budget for this current fiscal year.
Questions from Mr. Beckles? Dr. Dolensel.
Well, just a comment. I just want to thank you for your foresight. I remember many, many years ago, before the current superintendent, you talked to the board about the need to have a health insurance reserve. We didn't have one. And you said, look, we've been lucky, but look, and you showed us data. You said, look what could happen to us in any 1 year financially if we don't have a reserve. And you worked hard to build up a really good argument to present it to council so that council would approve the reserve. It was not an easy job at first, but Mr. Beckles persevered and had really gained the trust of the city administrative staff because of his work with them on healthcare consolidation, and then city council. So, the reason why this is not going to hurt us right now is because Mr. Beckles had the foresight to bring this to the board many years ago and then spent years kind of building up that reserve. So I just want to thank you.
You're welcome.
I concur. Any other comments, questions? All right, what's the board's pleasure?
Move to approve.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No one. Motion carried. Thank you. All right, 2016-17 applications for federal programs, and this will come back to us at our next meeting. Dr. McLean.
Yes, so this is for information this evening. Want to provide a brief overview for you and then answer any questions with relation to the different federal programs for which we're submitting our annual application. I'll call on Mike Freder.
Thank you, Dr. McLean. Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. McLean. Each year we come to you in June regarding various federal grant applications, and as you can see in your agenda report this evening, we will once again be submitting individual applications for 4 federal programs for the 2016-2017 academic year. Those programs are Title I Part A, Title I Part D, Title II Part A, and Title III. This is an annual requirement for school divisions with applications due to be submitted to the Virginia Department of Education by July the 1st, 2016. Tonight we're going to bring to you our initial planning and our progress toward the completion of the applications that are due on July the 1st. We'll be back with you at the board meeting on 2 weeks from now with the actual applications. So that you have context for these federal programs, I wanted to give you just a brief overview of each of the 4 programs and what the intent of the funding is. For Title I Part A funds, they are used to provide supplemental services to students to help prepare them for success in college and/or future careers. The program prioritizes excellence and equity and recognizes the importance of supporting teachers and students and provides supplemental human resources, professional development, meaningful family engagement, and high-quality instructional materials designed to assist students with the mastery of college and career-ready standards in reading and math and the attainment of proficiency or better on corresponding assessments. Title I-D funds are used to support prevention and intervention services for neglected and delinquent or at-risk students to assist them in becoming proficient in meeting challenging state academic content and academic standards to support them to successfully transition from institutionalization to further school or employment. Grant funds from Title I Part D are also used to support dropout prevention and support systems for youth returning from correctional facilities. Title II Part A funds provide supplemental services and human resources to ensure that all students are taught by a fully licensed, properly endorsed, and effective teacher. And to this end, the majority of our Title II Part A funds are planned to be used to support salaries and benefits for instructional coaches. The division is investing in these positions because of the tremendous potential for coaches to provide embedded professional development for all staff, provide content-specific support to teachers in all content areas, work with professional learning communities to support instruction, and to provide support in the development and retention of new teachers in Lynchburg City Schools. Finally, Title III funds are used to support English language learners in achieving proficiency with challenging academic standards, focusing on the acquisition of proficiency with listening, speaking, reading, and writing the English language. Grant funds are also used to promote parent engagement in the educational process of their children. For 2016-17, Lynchburg City Schools is anticipating, as you can see in your agenda report, level funding for all federal programs except Title I Part A. So what I'd like to do tonight is just to highlight some of the additions that we are planning for in our Title I Part A application that will be presented to the Department of Ed. With those funds, we're planning to support partial support for our lead instructional coaches in our elementary schools. We'll be supporting teachers and teacher assistants, 2 of those for pre-K classes. We're proposing an additional social worker for the school division. We are proposing a positive behavior intervention specialist to work alongside with Mrs. Brown and her department in the implementation of PBIS in our schools. We are proposing to use funds for responsive classroom training for our teachers, partial funding to support services for neglected and delinquent children. With these additional funds, we are able to support the salary and benefits increases for our Title I staff that all other staff will be enjoying. We are providing additional staffing at the school level based on specific needs that have been identified at particular schools. And finally, we're proposing that we use these additional funds to support professional development by the new Teacher Center to support administrators and coaches in providing meaningful and effective feedback to teachers regarding instruction. As previously mentioned, these applications are indeed due to be submitted to the Virginia Department of Education on or before July the 1st, 2016, and they do require board approval prior to being submitted. The applications are in process. Much of our applications are personnel specific. We've been in the process of looking at personnel and making sure that we have those people so that our budget that we present to you in the application will be as accurate as we can make it. We foresee that those plans, those applications will be completed towards the end of next week and no later than the first of next week, and you will have those for review of the applications prior to your next board meeting on June the 21st. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time, along with Dr. McLean and myself. Mr. Vanderwerker is here, can answer questions about Title III. Mrs. Brown is here, can address anything that you may want to know about Title 1D. And Dr. McLean and I will try to address anything you have, questions you have tonight about Title 1A and Title 2A.
Thank you, Mr. Rutter. Questions? No. No question. Dr. Dolensville?
I don't have a question. I was just going to suggest if there aren't questions or concerns, can we put this on the consent agenda for next time?
All right. No questions. All right. Thank you, Mr. Rutter.
Thank you very much.
All right. Our next item is the authorization of signature, and this is also coming to us for action this evening. Dr. Brobrand.
Yes, the Virginia Department of Education requires that the school division identify an individual in the absence of the superintendent to have the authorization to sign all VDOE correspondence, reports, documents, requisitions, and other official correspondence. I'd like to recommend this evening that the school board authorize Ms. Wendy L. Sullivan, school board clerk, to fulfill the necessary signature obligations in my absence. Many of the matters associated with the delegation of authority tend to be financial and operational in nature. We will try to do as much as possible to limit this from happening, but we want to have the opportunity, just given there may be occasions if I'm not available and the deadline is pressing, that it could be done.
And this has been our practice for years, so the board's pleasure. I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Is that a second?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't hear. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No one. Motion carries. All right, thank you. All right. Superintendent's comments. Dr. Brobrand.
Thank you, Ms. Haas. I had a wonderful experience last night at the Laurel graduation. I've been serving as superintendent there for the last 2 years, and my tenure there is ending, but it is ending truly on a high note. Donna Lewis has just done an outstanding job. The keynote speaker was the PTO president, the first PTO that Laurel's ever had, and she did a wonderful job talking about the special needs of those children, the special needs of those parents and the family. It was just a wonderful program, and I salute the staff of Laurel Regional. They're a wonderful group that I've gotten to get to know and work with, and I'll continue, of course, as we serve students, to go over there and be a part of what they do. I am delighted, too, that the Virginia High School League has announced that they are rescheduling and not canceling the outdoor track state championships. Many of you may know that because of weather, that there had been a decision to cancel the boys and girls outdoor track. Many of you may know that the girls team was leading in the state championship by a point with 2 or 3 additional races to go. The good news is on Thursday, I believe, they will be traveling back to Harrisonburg to complete the competition. So we're excited for both the boys and the girls to have that opportunity. And I want to thank the VHSL for their reconsideration around that issue. I want to note, I mentioned graduation at Laurel. Fort Hill is also having graduation. I believe it's Thursday. And then, of course, EC Glass and Heritage will be graduating on Sunday. And we hope that folks will go out and celebrate with those students. While school is getting out, we are preparing for summer school, and we hope that many of our students will take advantage, and our families will take advantage of the great summer school opportunities that we have. We have 21st century programs that start in June. We have other programs that start in July, and we are happy that because we did our calendar changes, that we got additional dollars that allowed us to expand summer school this year. So we actually have more time in summer school than we did before. Speaking of the calendar, we have put in an additional grant request for our calendar. We have to renew one each year. The good news is the state moved the deadline to now in June as opposed to July and August, so we should really know our budget for that and our ability to execute on that far earlier than we did before, which I know is one of the goals that the board had. I am excited about Casey Grab as being the director of our new Empowerment Academy, and in 2 days we will have an information session about Empowerment Academy to interested students and their families. I know Ms. Brown is here and she will be at that event, and as will I, and we're very excited about this new approach of creating and redesigning high school experiences for kids. You know, frankly, 25, 30 years ago, we did this for kids that were having tremendous success, and we called it the Central Virginia Governor School. Now, we're doing the same thing, really, in taking a smaller cohort of kids who are struggling a little bit, but we know they still have the ability to cross that line like any other child. And I know Casey and LaTanya and our staff are going to wrap around these kids and get them across the stage like every other kid and like every other family member wants to see for their children. So I'm very excited about that. And I just want to thank everyone. The end of the school year is coming to an end, believe it or not. And one of the things that I think is special in education is that there is the cycle of having a beginning and an end, and then it restarts again. So our folks have worked very hard, and we just have the last day of school for those who are wanting to know is Thursday, and our faculty come back for a final day on Friday, and then we have our graduations on Sunday. And I guess maybe the way to wrap up too is I had a chance, there's many folks that are having retirement celebrations. I got to briefly see Linda Williams, who's been one of our central office folks, our coordinator for preschool, who spent over 40 years in this division. And then today I had a chance at Heritage to see the Heritage faculty honor Mark Storm, who has served in this school system for 43 years. When you see what the people have done, there were in Mark Storm's today, people who are men and women in their 30s and 40s with children talking about what he did, sending $20 for the birth of a child for their graduation fund, reaching out during their going to their wedding. The kind of people that we have in this school system who are willing to go above and beyond for kids, that's what makes it special. I've only been here 4 years. Some people have been here over 40 years. And I hope you get a chance to join me at Staff Appreciation tomorrow. I'll do a better job of giving you a better heads up than I did today. I apologize for that. But we're going to honor all of our retirees, all of our folks with key years of service, and our teachers and support employees of the year tomorrow at Glass at 6 o'clock. And that will be wonderful too. So we're wrapping up the year and looking forward to the summer and the new year before you know it.
All right, thank you. Board comments.
I'm going to be quick. May I be quick? I am ending 53 years in the Lynchburg system some way or the other. Okay, and law board, I was at law graduation last night too, and you know, somebody's got to replace me on that board, so be thinking. I also went Friday to the Charlottesville VSBA Law Conference, and Wendy is going to send you some material. It's on the computer. Are you listening to me? I didn't make copies. It's coming to you for you to read. Please read it. It's really some good information there. Okay. And then I attended the senior assembly at Heritage and at EC Glass. I handed out some certificates at both of those. And my exciting thing was historic Sandusky's Quiz Bowl yesterday afternoon. It was exciting. I just thank you all for all the wonderful times I've had sitting here just looking at you all as you just add so much to everything. 53 years. Okay. That's me.
We got one more meeting.
Oh, no. Maybe not. Okay.
Dr. Coleman. She's like, he's out.
Madam Chair, as everyone who was there, speaking of Ms. Waller, it was certainly a joy to be at the Virginia Center for Inclusive Communities to see her so ably recognized, and the video really helped me to appreciate some of her meritorious service and contributions that are just remarkable. So it was an honor to be there. On the 26th, I believe, we did have our equity task force, and there are a lot of thoughts in that meeting, but I certainly heard you earlier, Dr. Brabrand, about maybe the possibility of a work session similar to the policy piece, because that would only, Madam Chair, help us to be stronger, I think. On that same evening, I attended the Amelia Pride graduation, and Dr. Braybrand did an excellent job, the vice mayor, excellent job. And I don't know whether that was taped or not, but some of those testimonies that the speakers, young students gave, whew. And so anyway, I look forward to going to all of the rest of the graduations that are going to be taking place.
On May 20th, I went to RS Payne in the morning for Goodies with Guardians. I think everyone had gotten an invite for that. I got to go to it, though, and it was sitting down with the K through 2 students and talking with them, and we were all invited because they consider us part of Guardians in the community. So there were, teachers and parents and grandparents and guardians and some local doctors and policemen were there, so the kids got to talk to a bunch of different people, and it was really cool. We got to sit and read and eat some breakfast with them, and they'll do it again next year, so if you get a chance, go to it.
Anyone else? Mr. Foley?
Got a chance to go see Beauty and the Beast at RS Payne, and those kids, they put on a show. They really did. I didn't want to leave, but they did a really good job. So congrats to their whole staff that put that together. Did an amazing job. Dr. Braybrand and I were at the Horizon Therapeutic Day Treatment graduation, and we got to speak to those children to see the looks on their faces from some of the skills that they were able to acquire throughout the year, and then to be able to take those skills and go back to the normal classroom. It was amazing to see the excitement on their faces from the things that they learned from that I guess that experience. And the last thing that I want to talk about during the presentation today with the Gifted program talks about the arts and the performances and things of that nature. It just kind of struck a conversation in my head. I was at my daughter's violin practice this morning, and there was a young man right behind me, and someone asked him what he wanted to be. And he, without a split second, he said he wanted to be a violinist. He wanted to play in the orchestra. He wanted to play in middle school, high school. He wanted to get a scholarship, and I thought that was great. But it kind of sent me down another track, because I've heard that same question being asked to a lot of kids in regards to sports. And this isn't a popular topic. This is something that is not really talked about a lot. But quite honestly, when we ask our children what they want to be, some of them say that they want to be a professional, whatever, baseball, soccer, football, whatever that may be. And of course, not everyone is going to make it in that field. But is there a time when we can address the physical abilities as far as playing sports as a talent, as far as giftedness? And I know people are like, can that be a gift? Is sports and academics is separate? But there's research and there's some material out there that I just want to initiate the conversation. I know that we're a long way from it, but I didn't want to just ramble away. I just put together 2 small paragraphs that I'm going to read, and then we can go ahead and be on our way. Some say that the social and task commitment skills learned in sports positively impact children's development, and others argue that it's good for children to be active in sports for physical reasons, but very few acknowledge that some children excel in sports because because sports is their gifted, talented area, and that nurturing this interest will bring success equal or perhaps greater than what they could achieve in academics. Now please, let me get to the end. I'm not saying that anything is more important than academics. But like other children around the world, Lynchburg has some special students highly gifted and talented in athletics, a talent area not always valued in the elementary and middle school education system, and often stereotyped or frowned upon in high school in different places. I say that because I've heard other kids being asked what they want to be. If you say a professional whatever, they was like, oh, well, let's get a backup plan. And I think that is true, but that is never said to the kid that said he wants to be a violinist or he wants to be I just haven't heard it in that area. I don't hear those arguments. I always hear, you go for it or you can do it. And of course, not all players are going to succeed at the highest level, but the odds are always against everyone trying to succeed at the top level in any field, even in traditional academics, such as those who are interested in becoming a molecular biologist or a famous author. The dream and the focus are what's important in those beginning years. Teachers and parents of kids with sports potential should not be too quick to dismiss athletic extracurricular activities. Education is always the top priority, but identifying gifted athletes and cultivating their skills can potentially increase the economic footprints of our students. And I say that because I've seen this firsthand with a particular student named Frisco Sandage. Frisco went to Sandusky Elementary. He graduated from Heritage High School. He got a basketball scholarship to go on and play at Delaware State. He graduated with his degree in communications, came back home to Lynchburg and had a difficult time finding a job. He was unemployed, essentially. He came and tried out for my professional basketball team, the Lynchburg Legends. He played with me for 1 season, and after that season, he got crazy contracts. He played in Switzerland, he played in Greenland, he played in Romania. He's traveled the world and received decent compensation for his skill and his talent. And all that I'm saying is that identifying some children, not all children, but being able to identify that as a gift and a talent, I think it can help expand the economic footprint of some of the students here at Lynchburg City Schools. And that all just kind of came as we were going through that presentation, the conversation that happened earlier. I know everyone cannot be an NBA or NFL or anything of that nature, but that could be set for any other field as well. And I just think that that if the goal is each child by name and by need, we have some students that are out there that are gifted, and I see them firsthand. They are gifted in these sports, and they're kind of moving on along, and then as they graduate, nothing really happens. If Frisco Sanders hadn't played for my organization or another organization, he would have never had the opportunity to travel the world and receive the type of culture and experience and compensation that he's getting from his talent. Like, that's his skill. That's what he does. He was the Import Player of the Year, MVP. The list goes on and on about his accomplishments. And once again, I'm not saying this for every kid, but I've been holding my tongue on it for a while. I just feel like that there's an opportunity to identify some kids in the Lynchburg area that are very gifted at their sports. They just need a little cultivation. So thank you guys for listening.
Anyone else? Okay, I've got a couple. Did you want to respond to that?
I just wanted to say one thing after Mr. Polly just spoke. We've talked about how to do greater board, community engagement, superintendent engagement. I'd love to find a way. I don't have the answer yet about all of your stories, because you've already mentioned getting to see Marie Waller through a different lens when you got to really see her story shared. If you got to see the speech that Derek gave to the Horizon graduating class, to hear his full personal story, I think all of us in here would have a whole different appreciation for his journey and where he is now. And I believe that about all of us in different ways. So one of the things I'm still left with as we're closing up the year is a way to get the stories of this board and really of the community out there and engaged more, because I think that's part of how we'll build the inclusiveness around race, gender, religion. How do we do more of it? I don't have the answer yet, but it's just amusing that I have really gotten over the last several months, and listening tonight, I just felt like I had to say it was a wonderful speech, very well regarded. So congratulations to you. Thank you.
All right. Okay, a couple of items. Due to scheduling conflicts, I think we are going to go with one board meeting for July, and that will be held on July the 12th. It is taking us off our normal schedule, but that seems to be the date that's going to work out for the majority of the board, so July 12th.
Madam Chair, I don't know to the degree of the appropriateness of what I'm saying, but I do want to indicate that obviously that's fine, but I accepted to do something in Baltimore on the 12th only because it was not the first or third Tuesdays. And up to this point, I've had perfect attendance. I've never had perfect attendance on anything in my life. And I was trying to keep that. And I understand. But in a way, I don't understand. But we can talk about that at some other time.
Well, certainly if there are objections to changing it, we can look at it, but it sounds like to me it's going to be difficult to try to pull another or stay on our regular schedule. But we will go with July 12th unless we find something else otherwise. Also wanted to share that Dr. Dolan Sewell has expressed interest in attending the Virginia Department of Education 2016 Classrooms, Not Courtrooms, School Discipline, and the Achievement Gap Institute, which will be held in Richmond on July 27th and 28th. I did not have anybody else express interest in that, but I certainly would like to name an alternate just in case Dr. Dolan Sewell has an emergency and can't attend. So if you're interested in being that alternate, please let me know after the meeting tonight. And also, I just wanted to say congratulations to all of our graduates, Amelia Pride, Day Treatment, Laurel, Heritage, and Glass. I'll leave anybody out, Fort Hill. We're very proud of all of our students, no matter what your journey's been. We are just so thrilled to see you finish, and wish you all the best in your journeys that lie ahead. All right. And so if we don't have anything else, we will go on and go into our closed meeting. Pursuant to the Code of Virginia 2.2-3711A1, the school board needs to convene a closed meeting for the purpose of discussing employee performance. Is there a motion to go into closed session? Second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No one. All right, we're in closed session.